All right, so Canada and the United States are obviously right next to each other. And I find this situation interesting because Alberta is like basically, I think, the biggest cash cow of Canada. I don't know, maybe BC too. I mean, it seems like the West pays for the East. And apart from well, it seems like more people live on the East and they take money from the West. This is a generalization, obviously. But you could consider Alberta an equivalent of Red America. You know, they would fit right in with like Montana and stuff like that. So if they did want to join the United States, culturally it would be easy. I don't know about everything else, but they would get along with Americans. And it's funny because I know people from like Ontario and stuff that are like, "Whoa, Alberta, guns, oil." It's just like, well, that's their way of life, and they're not pushing it on you. So I don't understand the problem. Well, anyway, that's another video. But in the United States, we have the opposite situation because we have the blue states. We on the West Coast um, and the East Coast that have like the money. Believe it or not, they subsidize the red states heavily, and I mean heavily. Without it, they wouldn't have health care. They wouldn't have the farms would shut down. They wouldn't have roads. There's so much that goes into red America from blue America. And yes, we still have that stupid, well, there's a smug attitude amongst blue states where it was like, well, we pay for that. And it's like, you don't understand. There's a reason we do that. And it's for a good reason, at least in our country. I'm not sure about Canada. It seems like Alberta's just getting ripped off, in my opinion. But in our country, we do that. We have for over 100 years, I think, now at this point, or well, close to 100 years, subsidized the red states for a reason. And they used to vote blue back then too, because we need food, and it's like everybody else, and we don't want the country to split apart. So we do that. And, also, you have to consider it from the opposite perspective. The red states produce the food, they have the energy, they do work that, like, people in blue states don't want to do. And I get annoyed when blue staters, like where I live, just think of them as a bunch of inbred hicks, uneducated, stupid people. And it's not true. Um, they're often very sophisticated and they know what they're doing. Sure, you can easily cherry pick some people in any state and go like, look at these idiots that live in West Virginia or something. But no, there's a lot of smart people in every single state in the United States, and I'm sure that's true of every province in Canada. So, but it is interesting that like in Canada, it is the red quote unquote province that is like paying the bills, and in the United States, it's actually the blue places. Now, I know that a lot of companies have left California and are trying to go to Texas, but the more they do that, Texas is like on the verge of becoming a blue state. So, wherever Californians go, trust me, they bring their politics with them. I don't care what we say, we eventually do. That's why I don't vote. Okay? I don't vote. I don't think I'm qualified to vote because, you know, I grew up in like one of the worst places in terms of like the politics of how we what we did to that state, Um, and then I had to run from it. So like if I'm that's my biggest annoying thing of Californians. Like when I meet them, it's like we have a saying, even the Californians hate the Californians. And then when you try to tell an Oregonian that, they'll just tell you, "Oh yeah, I hear that all the time." They don't believe you. So, but I'll stick to I mean what I say. But yeah, in our country, the blue states subsidize the red states so that we can keep the country together and have food. and resources and energy and all this stuff. And it seems like in Canada, it's like the opposite. They're all just expecting Alberta to, give them all the stuff they want, and then they kind of like pick on them for giving it to them, for like selling it to them, or they won't even let them make a pipeline. I think, so if they go independent, and if this T man had any brains, any two brain cells left in his head, I think he's going, Biden way in the ways of Biden. We would just make a deal with Alberta and say, oh yeah, bring a pipeline down here, and we'll have like 98 cents gas or something. I don't know. Um, it is an interesting juxtaposition, so that's why I made the video.